Okay, let's look at prepaid rent. We have maybe not looked at that in a while. Prepaid rent, this is an example of a prepaid expense, or a rent expense. So on February 1st, you prepaid for a year's worth of rent. You prepaid rent for 12 months, cost you $12,000 for the total. What entry do you make on February 1st? In other words, you're the one that's paying. What entry do you make? Well, you don't just debit rent expense because you haven't experienced any rent expense on February 1st. So you debit prepaid rent, uh, which is an asset, in this case, a current asset because it's inside of 12 months, and you credit cash because they actually want to get paid. And then on December 31st, you have to tell the outside world, this is in theory when you're publishing financials, hey, we just experienced rent expense of $11,000. $11,000 is obviously the 12 months. The 12,000 divided by the 12 months, that's $1,000 per month. From February 1st to December 31st is 11 months, and 11 times 1,000, which is the amount, is 11,000. Here you recognize your rent expense, and then you're again backing out the prepaid rent because you no longer have an asset, a current asset that's as valuable because you've consumed 11 months. Now, I wanted to go ahead and reverse this to show you the opposite here. This is unearned revenue. So let's look at it from the perspective just like this, but you're receiving the rent. So on February 1st, you receive prepaid rent for the next 12 months of $12,000. Well, obviously at that point, when they shove the money across the table at you, you haven't earned any rent yet. So on 2/1, the very first day, you're collecting cash of $12,000, so your assets go up. But your liabilities go up because unearned rent revenue means you've got to deliver 12 months worth of rent. And then from, just like here, from 2/1 to December 31st is 11 months. The math is identical. But instead of, since you're the one that's receiving money and not expending money, what you have here is you recognize $11,000 worth of rent revenue because now you have earned 11 months worth. That's 12,000 divided by 12. And then you slowly back out this unearned rent revenue. It's important to note that prepaid rent is an asset, it's a current asset, and here unearned rent revenue is a liability. So I wanted to show you these two examples of prepaid expenses and unearned revenue because they're kind of both sides of the table. This is the entries you would make if you're actually paying the rent for a year and then living in the house or living in the warehouse or wherever you happen to be prepaying rent for. And this is the example of the mirror side of this where you're receiving the prepaid rent and how it affects you. If you're paying it, you're creating an asset because you've paid rent, but you're due some lodging. If you are receiving it, it's a liability because you've gotten some money, but it has not been earned yet until you start going through time. I hope you found this useful.